Hello, I am Max and you're watching Cool Stuff in Weird Cars. In today's video, finally revealing the new car that I bought. As you can tell by the title, actually what it is. I've been teasing it a lot on like Instagram and stuff. Here it is, my brand new Toyota Celsior. Something not quite right about this. That is not a Celsior. Alright, so joking aside, here is a new car. It's a 1993 Toyota Celsior, which is literally the Japanese version of the LS400. And I purchased it. It was the cheapest one I could find in the US that was mechanically sound. There was one other one that was in in Michigan that had suspension problems, and it was an air suspension car, so I did not want to deal with that. And this was the cheapest one. So let's have a look at it. So but before that, we'll talk about a little bit of backstory with this car. So I really like my Lexus LS400 that I've had for the past a little over 2 years now. And it has 176,000 miles on it. It runs and drives perfectly fine still. But in the back of my mind, I was always like, man, I kind of like the Celsiors. Just because I like the LS400. I'm like, you know, it's a nice car. And I like the fact that some of these cars are right-hand drive, as you can tell. And I was like, man, I kind of want to find one because they're usually cheaper than most other Japanese imported cars. And they're usually low mileage. And of course, they're an LS400, so they're going to last a long time. So I decided, I kind of out of random, not really, I took a road trip a few days ago, which is the video you'll see after this one, of the whole road trip experience. Well, not really the whole road trip experience, but quite a bit of it, and man, was it an adventure. You're not going to want to miss that video. But I took a little road trip out to Richmond, Virginia to Japanese Classics LLC, a JDM car dealership where they import their own cars and then fix them up a little bit and then sell them. And I was like, hey, I'm going to go here, I'm going to buy a car. So that's what I did. I trailered this car back a couple days ago. Actually, just yesterday I got back home, and I love it already. I've driven it quite a bit. I got insurance on it, and driven it just generally otherwise, a few miles here and there. But let's get back to the details of this car. So we'll take a look around the outside first. And for those of you who are curious, the price I paid for this thing was $8,495. The one I mentioned in Michigan was about $7,000, but again, like I said, it had suspension issues. The entire rear suspension was collapsed on it, so didn't really want to deal with that because I knew it would probably cost a bunch, and I didn't really feel like doing the work to it. And this car luckily does not have the air suspension, so shouldn't run into that problem ever. But we'll take a look at it, and I'll note some of the interesting things, which it's in basically perfect condition. It's only got about 53,000 miles on it, which is 85,000 kilometers. And there's not really many scratches or anything on the outside of this thing. It's in beautiful shape. The wheels don't have brake dust caked in them like the LS400 does. I will also be doing a video comparing these cars directly before I sell this car, which is another thing I'll get to later on in the video. But we'll just have a look at this. It's silver on top, gray down on bottom. Didn't really have a choice in the color at all. Everything seems to work. All the windows go down, the power mirrors work fine, the AC works great, which is fantastic. Something I did not want to live without, of course. But it's basically just the Lexus LS400, other than the fact that it's right-hand drive and has a few different buttons on it that the LS400 does not have. It was sold new at Shizuoka Toyopet, which is an interesting little sticker there that I'm not going to get rid of. The wheels all are in nice condition. That one's a little scuffed up, it looks like, but probably fix that up a little bit. Here's the most major damage right here on the mirror. Looks like somebody just kind of hit it with something and ended up getting scratched and cracked a little bit. No big deal though. This car does not have a sunroof, as you can tell up there. It's actually fairly low optioned, which I'll show when I get in the interior. But it's basically an LS400. And so moving on to the inside. Doors all nice, or all the doors open and close very nicely. Of course, like I said, it is right-hand drive because it is a Japanese import. There are a few things in here that I need to get rid of, like trash-wise, but whatever. But it's very nice in here as well. We do have cloth seats, which is something that is very hard to find on the USDM LS400s. And before anything, I'll go ahead and start it up. And I'll show all the little problems that it has in this video as well, because there's not enough to actually make a full video about things that are broken and whatnot. Which you'll notice one.
Waiting for powering.
Turn that off. It does have the little easy pass thing down there that talks to me in Japanese whenever I start the vehicle. And you can see a slight problem already. I'll turn this. And that is the fact that the tachometer does not really move. So, a common problem on the LS400s and Celsiors is the gauge capacitors tend to go out, which means that the gauges kind of just stop working or get kind of wonky, which this car sadly has that issue with the tachometer. And I have noticed once that the speedometer was also kind of frozen for a few seconds, but then it started working after I was driving it for a little bit. And my LS400 actually has a problem with the fuel gauge not working right. But otherwise, so the other gauges work, the temperature gauge works, the fuel gauge works. You see down there 85,581 kilometers, and it is 28 degrees Celsius outside. Interesting thing about Japanese cars, if you don't know, turn signals are on the right side of the steering wheel. And the windshield wipers are on the left, which on the LS400, it is flip-flopped, of course. These screens work, which is fantastic. They don't work on my LS400. The radio goes between like 75 and 90, as you can tell there, instead of 88 through 107 like US cars do. Basically the same radio. It does not have a CD player, sadly. It has this button, which swaps it from AM to FM, oddly enough. It has this button, which apparently is what it does is it directs more air to the back seat if you have that selected. At least that's the information I could get on it. Very interesting, because these cars were used as chauffeur cars a lot in Japan. The guy at the dealership said this was to lock out the gears so it wouldn't shift down, but I haven't gotten it to work yet like that. So I have no real clue if that's actually what that's supposed to do. Glove box, I'm going to actually move some stuff around, so I don't know what kind of information's on that stuff. You can see here, there's nothing in here besides the vents, unlike my LS400, which had the car phone in there, even though it doesn't actually have the phone. It does have cup holders, just like the LS400, and they're kind of stuck. Why are they stuck? Oh, because there's things in the way, that's why. It does have different transmission modes, just like the LS400, and overdrive, of course, on the side of the shifter. So yeah, an interesting thing here, that's cruise control, but I found out the cruise control will not operate at a speed higher than about 69 miles per hour. I guess cars in Japan were heavily limited to speed, which of course the speedometer only goes up to 180 kilometers per hour, which is about 111 miles per hour, while the US LS400 had a 160 mile per hour speedometer. But yes, cruise control will not go up or will not engage at a speed higher than about 70. So that's kind of disappointing. Now an interesting feature over here is you do get actually power folding mirrors, which is fantastic for the 0 times that I'll use them probably. And pretty much everything is very similar. Got a glove box over there, no airbag for the passenger side. That was included later on because that was just mainly a US thing. For dual airbags, as I said, no sunroof up top. Really, there's not much else to talk about. Everything's just in really nice condition. First Toyota badge in the wheel. We'll go ahead and open up the back real quick. Which actually, one interesting thing, if you notice, the floor mats have a very interesting design on them. The middle one's a little off still. I need to actually place it better. But it says Celsior in the middle, so these are factory floor mats, which is extremely interesting. And one more thing that's actually really nice back here, besides the fact that you get a lot of space, like the driver's seat is where I'm driving with it, and I'm 6'2", and you can tell my knees are really having no problems fitting back here. By the way, no power no power headrests, which is something the LS400 has. But if we open this center console here, you can see there's actually cup holders in here and storage, which in the LS400 is just like a solid block of foam that you get for the center console. Very interesting, very nice for the rear passengers. This is also wood grain around the little thing right here, and also the button for guiding more air back here is also back here. Of course, with this I will also be making a full review video of this car at some point, so be on the lookout for that. And finally we'll go look at the trunk, which is nothing really special, but I'll show it off anyways. As I mentioned, nothing really interesting in the trunk. This does have both the first aid kit and the tool. Okay, you're supposed to go back in there. And the tool kit, which the LS400 also has. This has a battery with it. I just noticed that. I don't know what this is either. It might be like road flares or something. I don't know, but it has both of those things. As I said, no CD changer on the right side. And here's an interesting thing. The third brake light is super long on this car, and it looks factory, and it still has the subwoofer in the back there, and it also has vents on top, which I'm not entirely sure what they do either, but they're there. But there we go. And that's pretty much the outside of this car. We'll actually look at the engine real quick too. And by the way, another interesting thing is that this car has been running this entire time. It's so hard to hear it. It's like twice as quiet as my LS400, which makes sense honestly, because it has, you know, 176,000 miles on it. But same engine, of course, with the steering box and the brake booster on opposite side, due to the fact that, of course, it is right-hand drive. And there the fan's turned off, and you can just barely hear it running. It makes little squeaks and stuff, but it's also a 26-year-old, 27-year-old car, so not too worried about that. As I mentioned, no traction control over here, and that's really the only major difference. We'll close this, which has really good hood struts too, which is nice. And there we go. And so that will conclude this little introductory video for my new 1993 Toyota Celsior. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns about the car, let me know in the comment section below, and I also plan to do some more videos. I'm going to do a straight-up comparison between the two cars, the LS400 and this, just to show all the different stuff for Japanese market. And I'm going to be making like one more video of the LS400. I'm probably going to be, well, not probably, I'm going to be selling it. Just because I don't need two of these, and I'd much rather have the nicer one. Because that car, I mean, it's still perfectly drivable. Like, I'd drive it from here to California right now if I had to. Like, I would trust in it to do that. But, you know, I don't need two of them, basically, so we're going to stick with this one and just do a nice little send-off to the LS400. So thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.